everyone. Nice to see a crowd. I wasn't expecting to have such a big crowd. In this talk, we will explore how to use NX Monorepo for small projects. They can provide a solid foundation and room for growth, much like growing a family, finding an ideal home. So, as you know, everybody who starts up a family probably comes to that they need a bigger home. So that's kind of my analogy for this talk. We'll begin by understanding the basics of NX Monorepo and how easy it is to get started. Drawing on the analogy of growing family, we'll delve into how small projects can start with an NX Monorepo structure and seamlessly scale as they expand. I will also illustrate the flexibility, scalability, and organizational benefits that NX Monorepo offers. So I am a full stack developer. My name is Gable. These are all the links that you can kind of find me on X, or I have a blog. It's still under my last name that I used to be. GitHub will have the latest repo that I will show you at the end of this presentation. And I just want to say that I'm nervous. And speaking is not my second nature, so it is kind of nerve-wracking. Hopefully my notes will kind of guide me through this talk. But I have done NGConf talk in presentation 2022, which is a big Angular conference in Utah. And I ended up working for the organizers at Here.js for the past 2 years. And right now I'm looking for my next project. I'm actively interviewing for that. And I just want to say that the reason I present is because I like to share my knowledge with people. Second is to motivate others to do presentations, because this is building your public brand. This is makes you more presentable for your next job, your next project. And there's, like everyone else, I have the imposter syndrome. Anybody knows what that is? Yes.
Good enough to know what that
So
is.
here's the definition of imposter syndrome, but what I think it is just your the way you feel about yourself when you talk about something technical, about your job. It's really a marketing term to sell you books or talks or sessions at therapy. So my way of overcoming it is just go ahead and do it. Just like jumping in the water when you don't know how to swim. So before we dive in, let's take a look at what's in store for today in more detail. Whether you know what NX is, if I can have a raise of hands, anybody who's already using NX? Okay, we have a couple of people, 3 people, good. The rest of you will learn something new. So we're going to look at how we can optimize the workflow of your project. This talk is something for everyone. First, we'll explore how NX can streamline your workflow, saving you time and effort, from faster builds to smaller task execution. NX is all about making development more efficient. Next, we'll talk about why monorepos are a game changer in our industry. A unified code base isn't just about organizing your code, it's also enabling for better collaboration between teams and scalability. Also, I would like to add that
somebody's on the L.
I think somebody's on. Somebody's mic is open.
I would like to also add here that monolithic applications is not a new thing. Actually, for those of us who've been in the industry for a long time, we've actually been on the projects where we were trying to get away from monolithic applications and do microservices, micro front ends, creating different repositories for different teams to improve builds, improve workflow of every application. And now with NX DevTools, we're actually bringing everything back because it allows us to have fast builds, but also it gives us the tool set how to have all the positive things about having a monolithic repository. Finally, I'll share some practical strategies for overcoming the common objection to adopting NX. From addressing team concerns to demonstrating value, you'll be equipped to make a strong case for NX. I'll have a little demo for you. And as we go through these points, I encourage you to think about your current workflows. What are the pain points you may have, and also how NX may help you address those. So keep those in mind in case you have questions at the end. With the roadmap in mind, let's get started. And we'll start looking at NX, what kind of powerful tool is, and especially for Angular projects. And I am an Angular developer, so by the raise of hands, do we have Angular developers here? This is this is JS, sort of. Okay, so because we don't have a lot of Angular developers here, I want to say this talk is not Angular specific. So if you have React app, this will apply 100%. So just cross in your mind word Angular, replace it with whatever UI you use, could be just JS, React, or whatnot. So let me introduce you to NX. It's an open source build system that's changing the game for developers. It's designed to supercharge productivity with tools that simplify running tasks like test, linting, and builds. By streamlining workflows and optimizing performance, NX empowers teams to work faster, more efficiently, and with great confidence. This is the link to NX, so check it out. So this is what we're kind of used to in this day and age. Polyrepo setup, each project or application resides in its own separate repository. This is current traditional approach many teams and organizations use now. So I want to clarify what Monorepo is in case you don't know. Monorepo is short for monolithic repository. It's a single code repository that holds all the code for multiple distinct projects, apps, libraries, tools, and more, with well-defined relationships. Instead of juggling separate repositories for every project, a Monorepo brings everything together under one roof. So just like VS Code is not something that could produce anything without a developer coming in and adding code and actually producing software, the same thing with NX Monorepo. It's a toolbox that is used for you to create beautiful code. Coming back to the analogy of this talk, a Monorepo is like well-organized family home. It's easier to share resources like common utilities or libraries without duplication. Dependencies are managed in one place, reducing versioning nightmares. Collaboration becomes seamless because everyone is working in one shared project space. I want to mention here that the way I've used NX is an integrated workspace where we have one package file, and every app that is inside the Monorepo, we would be all in the same version. That's one of the selling points of NX. So if you have different teams who have different repositories, sometimes one team is on one version of a framework, another is on another. This kind of eliminates that problem. So NX takes the concept of Monorepo and makes it even better. It provides advanced tooling to manage dependencies, optimize builds, and visualize project relationships. So if you have a new person who comes to join your team, it's really easy. There's a visual of your application with NX Graph, which I'll show you later. And it just helps you manage your resources a lot better. For managing smaller Angular projects, it just feels seamless as working in one app, or if you have multiple apps, same thing. That's the promise of NX, and I'll show you how to tackle real-world challenges and how it elevates developer experience for teams at all sizes. Right now, so the way NX was created, two Google developers who were working on code base, and Google is actually one big Monorepo, and all of the code base for Google is inside one Monorepo. And the two developers from Google left and created software NX DevTools based on their experience at Google. And actually the same thing applies to Meta and I think Twitter and Netflix. I think also all use Monorepo style their code base. Although there's there's hundreds of teams that use this Monorepo, you still have a way of distributing your application to the teams by utilizing different libraries and different apps as features. So each team could take on that library or application. So think about the last time someone you know bought a house, or maybe you bought a house. So it's not an easy decision, right? There's so much to consider. What is your budget, the quality of the home, the comfort, whether it will fit the needs in a few years if you grow in a family. So what if I told you that choosing tools and system for a software project is the same as buying a home? So let's explore this connection. When buying a house, the first question is always your budget. What can you afford? So in software, the same thing applies. We need to think about the cost of the setup. Who is going to pay for this project, right? Maintenance, resources. NX offers a high return on investment by reducing long-term costs like build times and redundant work. And I want to bring up here that NX is a free tool. Everybody can use it. There is no cost associated. The cost is intrinsic, right? It's whoever's going to put in time. You have to sell to your product, that somebody needs to be in charge of adding NX to your projects. So probably here I want to also mention that there's always some kind of cost associated with software development, and with NX there's some pros about going with it because there's this really tight structure with using NX. We'll talk about it more. So next we will look at the quality of the home, whether it's well built, whether it's durable, are there good schools around, the neighborhoods are safe, so all these things that we talk about when we buy a home. So for the software, this translates to tools that are robust and reliable. NX ensures our projects remain high quality with features like consistent tooling and automated checks. This is all built into NX. So here, talking about comfort, I believe that any new technology that comes to each team is really stressful for people, and this is where NX makes it really easy. Because there's an intuitive workflow, and it is simplified for developers' experience. It makes day-to-day work is really simple. Especially, I like the testing and linting tools within NX. Those are really helpful. Skip one. I didn't skip anything. Finally, we think about the future. Does the home already has room for growth for a family to expand? Similarly with NX, you may start your NX workflow with just one small project, whether it's Angular or React or whatever else framework you use, or vanilla JavaScript. But down the line, for example, if you work for a big company, there might be like a new feature comes along and it's completely different from what you're working on, but you want to share resources. There's a couple of ways to share domain objects. You could do npm, utilizing npm install, or you can just copy paste and duplicating your code, so depending on how your team works right now, or you could just add a new app to your NX workspace, and it just seamlessly works together. It's absolutely easy to grow your project. So choosing a well-built home isn't just about today, it's about setting yourself up for long-term happiness and growth. Similarly, adopting NX is about creating a solid foundation for your software projects. So these are the three things we talked about. NX balances the key factors we care about while preparing for the future of your project, just like I mentioned before. It's like building the perfect home for your team and your code base. Now that we see that NX is your ideal home for your projects, let's explore how to start building that home and unlocking full potential. Yeah, know what you're thinking. Another tool, another learning curve, right? Every tool that you use comes with a cost, whether it's time spent learning it, integrating, or convincing a team that it's worth the effort. It's a valid concern, but let's talk about why NX is different. NX isn't just another tool, it's a strategy investment, and return comes from a form of speed, quality, and unified development experience. Let's explore what that looks like. So first one is task caching. So NX has two types of caching. The first one is it stores whatever previous runs that you had within your repository, and next time you do that task, it instantly retrieves that. This happens locally in your folder structure, or if it's set up with NX Cloud, then it's available dynamically to other users of this repository. NX Cloud is the one paid product that NX offers. Everything else is free. Next thing is scaffolding of NX. It's really powerful. It's for Angular, for example, it is built on top of Angular CLI. And it also uses the caching mechanism that I just described on top of CLI for Angular. And it actually, if you continue to use the CLI for Angular, it is actually wrapped by NX CLI. And because of the caching, it improves the speed of Angular CLI. I can't speak for others, but I'm sure if you research it, you can find that NX is not an Angular dev toolbox. It's JavaScript, and it's not just JavaScript. It's different software builders are using it. I don't want to talk about that today because we're talking about small Angular projects. Also, tool integration. It's easy to integrate Storybook, Tailwind, and more, and others. There's no special setup. NX is has a family of plugins that are super easy to use. You just put a command in your CLI and it executes this. There's no manual setup for anything. And if there is something specific, you can even build your own. It's super easy. It's very extensible. So it's not just in theory. I actually worked on a couple of big and small projects using NX. I don't know if anyone here is from Aeon. Even though we're in Aeon building, no one. Okay, good. So if I'm lying, you're not gonna know. So I know Aeon is using NX in one of their projects because I was on that team and I introduced that. So let's see. I can think of another company that's in Chicago. I can't. Online world is great. We're just all working on different companies. Okay, so I want to talk about quality tools. NX is about more than just speed. It's about building better software. So with NX, you get automated code updates. There's a really robust NX migration plugin. It keeps all your frameworks, all of your libraries up to date, really effortlessly. If there's a struggle on your team to keep your apps within latest and greatest versioning, this is going to solve that problem for you. One of the most common setup is one package file. So that I talked about this before, and so every project in your repository is on the same version. So built-in tools like linting, testing, dependency graph ensure code consistency. This helps you maintain clean code, consistent code across all of your teams. So you can actually create generators for different libraries, so everybody uses the same structure for components or services or whatnot. Also, dependency graph allows you to understand how your projects are connected at a glance, and custom generators and lint rules maintain project quality. These tools ensure that every line of code meets your team standards, making quality an integral part of your workflow. So again, I want to just say that by adopting NX, there is initial cost. You do have to learn it. You have to set it up. And the way I've approached selling NX to my team is just taking the initiative, trying to play with it. So you do have to kind of become a hero and try to bring it with knowledge. So now we're gonna talk about how to get started, and I'll have a little demo. Actually, getting started with Workspace is super easy. You just run this command, and I can probably start sharing my VS Code. You ready for a demo? Mm-hmm. Okay, good. Okay. Actually, so this command sets up everything you need, and I just want to show you a screenshot. This is all of the questions that I've answered when I ran it. This is a brand new workspace, and you can see that I gave it a name, which is going to be like your organizational name. Then it does ask you what kind of stack you want to use. I chose Angular. There's two different ways to create workspace. It's either integrated or a single app. I chose integrated. What also I want to mention here, and when you use NX workspace, you're not limited to just Angular. So once you set it up and you have another team that wants to use React, or you're using already React, you start up with a React app, and then you hire somebody and they're really good at Angular and you just want to get something started, you can add on different types of library frameworks into your workspace. I do have a first application called users, but you have to start with some first application that's going to be your top level application when you start off new. Back in the days when you created a workspace, you were kind of limited to the version of workspace had to match your Angular version. Now it's no longer an issue. So if you're doing a different version of Angular, you can move on with the new version of workspace, and they don't have to match anymore. Also there's CI providers. There's a list of providers you can choose from. There's GitHub, Azure. There's a few more. And this takes a few minutes. That's why I kind of gave you a screen. And I have to switch. This is now I'm moving on to upgrading an existing app. So I have to share my VS Code. Okay, I'm just gonna quickly go through this workspace that I just created. So as you can see in my apps, I have one application called Users.
Can we make it bigger? Is that possible? A little bit more.
Okay, so this it is an Angular app, and you can see it just created basic configuration with some imports. There's a component, there's a config for application, there's routes. So this is all out of the box. I haven't touched this workspace at all. It also gives you out of the box end-to-end tests with Cypress, but you can use different ones. Actually, in when I gave a screenshot, there was one question about which end-to-end runner you want to use, and I chose Cypress, but you can use Playable. Is that the name?
Playwright?
Yes. Playwright, and I think there's two more. I don't remember what they are. I chose Cypress because I know about it. Let's see. So now I want to show you really quick before I move on to another project that I did for updating something. So in order to update an existing application, I'm only showing one thing. That's okay. I'll show you the commands that I ran. First, I'll just show you the code that. So I was writing a blog about Angular 19, and this is Angular Angular app, really small. I just do ng serve just to see if I can. I don't know if I can show you because I'm not sharing. Wait, it's already converted to NX. Okay, let me go to main. Okay, so this is main. This one I can do serve. So once you convert to workspace, there's a little bit of a different way to run it with Angular CLI. Only if I click on it, it's not going to work because I'm not sharing my whole desktop. So if you want to check this out, I'll let's see. Just show you two branches that I've created. So the first branch that I did was just to initiate NX workspace. I just ran a command. It was NX init latest. I think I'll show you in the presentation. But let me show you how the structure changed. So now this is a single application workspace. It still has our source folder. It still has our app in here with all the folders that I did. There's an XJSON file, but if we want to make this into integrated workspace where we can add multiple libraries, multiple applications, there is another command that I ran, and it's NX generate integrated monorepo. And now it's changed to the look of the very first workspace that I show you in the first folder, where it has multiple apps. And if I wanted to add a library, actually I already did that because I didn't want to take too long here to create libraries. So let me just show you really quick. So this demo has like product services, and it has a model called products. And in the next branch, I'll show you how I moved it to a library. I ran a command. Let me switch to that branch. And with that command, I created a library. In this library, whenever you have a separate library for your feature, or you could have like dummy components could have a separate library if you have some kind of platform for your components. You have a specific API that you expose that other people could use, right? For example, here I created a model called product. It's in this file. Let's see. This used to work. I don't know what happened here. Actually, I moved it from the apps because it used to be in here, and my service would use it. So now it should be imported from that library. So right here. So this actually has like a top level response on it. So I want to show you really quick NX graph. That's what I wanted to show first. Let's see if we can. Let's see if this works. Oh, this actually opened up. That's good. All right, so this is the interface of a graph. By default, it doesn't show you any projects because in a big monorepo with lots of libraries, this will be huge. Like you can't even recognize anything. So you would have to click on this. So my app is called Demo, and the library is Model. So this is kind of like your overview of your workspace. So if you have team specific, you can actually, like, let's say you have a feature the team that works on a cart. You have like an e-commerce site. So you put like cart here, and it will just filter out everything that's related to cart, and you can walk through with like a junior or a new developer going, okay, this is the app, this is library, this is how we use state management, whatnot. So this is really useful with team for explaining how the application works. Also, I want to show you how you can visualize the tasks that are cached, because there's two things that are I remember I said about caching, there's two things that are cached within NX. First is are your tasks like build or serve, you can cache those, and another one is the results of those tasks, which is an ability for you to run, for example, tests for a specific application without rerunning tests for everything. So, for example, so let me click on this first. That's the first thing I wanted to show you. Okay, so the project detail, this is the first thing I wanted to show you. So you kind of can see all the different targets that are available. This is just a visual thing. You can find it all in like the configuration too, but this is kind of nice. And you can also see it in a graph. There's not much to see here. That's why you can't really see anything. So I wanted to talk about affected. So let me see.
Kate, would you mind terribly if you could zoom in just a bit? I'm sorry, in the back, I'm having a hard time seeing it. Maybe that's amazing. I'm sorry, I know that makes it so hard, but thank you.
Okay, so this is one way to, let's see if we can close some of these. I can't really get to it, sorry. Sorry, when it's so big, I can't make it smaller here. All right, so let's go back to my presentation so I don't get too lost. Okay. I'm gonna share that. I'm gonna share something else. Okay, can you tell I haven't done this for a while? Okay, so remember how we converted the single, when we initialized the first app to like the monorepo, we had multiple apps, multiple libraries. This is the command. So I did the demo. Without my notes, all I can say is, because I can't see my notes now, is NX is you can see it's a lot of things. Mostly the most important thing, it's a tool that is there to help us efficiently create software. These are the things that we learned today. Hopefully I was able to show you how NX can streamline your workflow. Also, I kind of talked about unblocking the unified code base. So when you're using NX Workspace, it kind of limits you to what everybody has to conform to. There is a specific way of doing coding. And also, if you are, like I said, if you are approached or you have an idea of approaching your team to use NX, the best thing to do is to play with it. This is the GitHub repo. I didn't do any live coding because I'm kind of nervous. This is why I did different branches. So if you open up the branches, you can kind of see what I did there. Yeah, also I want to mention that NX, why I'm doing this, besides like just doing it for myself, NX did ask me to be their NX champion. So I am practicing this talk and I'm proving this talk. I've done this talk at an Angular meetup. And this is another iteration of it. And hopefully I can build up on it more and become better at it and give more value. But I want to see if anyone has any questions so I can answer.
So one of the things that I found with software development is always the hardest problems are always the social ones. The code is never really the issue. I've noticed that one of the big reasons that people have moved away from monolithic repos and into the like microservice type stuff was to add an additional layer of abstraction to keep things from stalling out waiting on another team. Does this solve any of that? Like, so if you have, like you were talking about, everything shares like one library version. So I'll use what I know, let's say Spring Boot, right? And if everybody's using the same version of Spring Boot, but you're trying to push a version forward, but another team's like, no, we can't really do that because we're relying on something that was deprecated in a previous version. Are you just stuck, or is there ways around that?
There are ways around it.
Okay.
Yeah, you don't have to work on NX Monorepo with one package file.
Okay.
It's an advantage,
Mm.
and if you need to overcome it, there are ways to overcome it. Yeah, definitely we don't want anyone to be stuck.
Okay.
But yeah, it's I would say NX is more of adding value, not taking away.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead, Nick.
To add on that, NX is compatible with like other languages, which is really, really cool. It's much more versatile.
Other languages or other frameworks like to work with?
Languages too, yeah.
Languages, yes. Languages, like period. Like yeah. Like it is a agnostic build task system. You can, as long as you're able to define your tasks, define what is cached where, you can leverage it for a lot of different things, which is what really adds to it.
Okay.
My question is more centered around, have you tried out TurboRepo, which is like similar to NX? And if you have, what are your thoughts?
I have not. I know that there is another monorepo provider that was assumed by NX.
Yeah, LearnUp. Yeah. That was really popular before.
Yeah, it was very popular before, yeah. I haven't played with that either. I'm kind of new to NX. 3-4 years, considering kind of new.
You got a leg up on
But I do have experience. I've worked on NX repos, so that's a plus. Yes, go ahead.
So what is an example of a task that gets cached?
Build. So for example, if you have you build locally, right? First you build locally, but the same build happens on your CI server. So that's the task that would be cached locally. So when you change something in your application, you have something that's already built. It's not going to rebuild, but you can also cache serve. You can cache test. Like you can cache anything, but it does ask you what you want to cache.
And so I'm not familiar with Angular without NX. Is it something like you make one little change and then Angular recompiles and it takes like 5 minutes or something?
So it's not just Angular. It depends like how big is your Angular, right? And how many different things that have to if it's big enough, because Angular is used a lot in enterprise software. So if it's big enterprise software, it's gonna take time. Yeah, we're breaking it up into small units. That's the
there's always Git below like NX or anything, right? So there's always some kind of version control. Does everything go into Git finally, or is it like
it goes into GitHub repository if it's GitHub. One repository, yeah. Yes, please.
Is there like a minimum team size before which it becomes worthwhile to use something like NX?
Okay, so as you saw, it's one command to get started, so it's really super easy to start. And I wanted to emphasize why it's like good for small projects, because first of all, you're getting to learn a tool that's eventually it's marketable, like you making yourself marketable. So when you go to work for big enterprise software, you know how to do it. But you are still utilizing the toolbox. So all of the schematics, all of the generators and stuff, it's all there for you. So there's already, but if you were to sell it for the team, like sizes, I don't think there is like a number. So it's all individually, like how you want to decide on that.
But to answer, I think you are to have 2 team members. We have like 8 or 10 Angular projects. I think having them as one monorepo help us out a lot, because we are supporting these projects, we constantly switch between these projects. So even with the small teams, but if you have a big number of projects, it can be very helpful.
Taking that a step further, I have a personal project that's open source that I maintain. It's deployed in multiple ways: CLI, web app, just like core library. Like monorepo patterns benefit me even as an individual, maintaining that many different abstractions of the same kind of functionality across different deployment patterns. That speaks to like the deployability, cacheability, build patterns, and like versatility as far as like platform deployment.
Is a bit of it like anti-bike shedding, where it's like some of those details you just sort of make into a habit over and over again?
For sure. Yeah, I mean, it is like a way of working, like adjustment for sure. Monorepos and like things like Nx and Turbo Repo are opinionated and expect you to like conform certain styles, but it is like something where you can find a middle ground between their paradigms and what you're trying to do. And NX is very amenable to like variant code bases, different kinds of build patterns. Again, it's not language dependent.
No.
It cares about what you're building, how you're building it, how you're running it. It's like more like a bash powerhouse, like a caching powerhouse than like anything.
Yeah, in our last project, we had a pretty cool generator that our architect created for a form, and there was a drop down to select like a code, and depending on the code, there was always a different set of controls that would show up. So they created a generator to create a library. So if you're working on that code, the generator would spin up the library that already has like the CSS, the kind of like the wrapper for that form. So everybody just creates the same thing over and over again without like, okay, should I name it this way? Like if we're using component store, it's like a state management library. Like don't don't do your own thing. Like just do the same thing that everybody does. So that's kind of like the code. The cleanliness of the code comes from setting those rules in place on the teams, and that's really powerful. Well, I hope I can come next time to this meeting and I see one of you present. Because if I can do it, you can do it.
Nice job.